Good evening. I'm kind of focusing on, I guess, my following Jesus through the last year, this past year. As of today, I am 3 days short of a year from having had a heart attack on Easter Saturday, 2024, while visiting my son and his family in upstate New York. Approximately 3 weeks later, and this was after having spoken with me earlier in my recovery, my sister-in-law called me and she said that she had a question for me about my heart attack. So I said, sure, go ahead. She says, do you feel like you cheated death? Well, my immediate response was, no, it wasn't my time. But I couldn't elaborate on it any further than that at the time. And it kind of set in motion for me a journaling of what my thoughts and feelings were remembered from the events of the heart attack on that particular Saturday. Parenthetically, my sister-in-law I've spoken with more recently, and she acknowledged to me that she'd always felt that she had cheated death in 2 near-death experiences, and she was seeking validation or similarities between the two of us. So that was something that was different. But back to Easter Saturday last year, around 3 a.m., my then 10-year-old grandson, he had just turned 10 that week, came to my bedroom and he said that he had a bad dream and he couldn't go back to sleep. So I told him to go ahead and stay with me. And I think he got back to sleep before I did. And then at 5:10, I woke up and I had mid-sternum pain. And it was a burning sensation that I immediately thought of as indigestion or heartburn. I turned over to see if a change of position would help with it, and immediately started to sweat profusely, which very quickly changed to feeling cold and clammy, and without a change of the intensity in the mid-sternum pain, which by then felt like there was a diamond in the middle of my chest that was just moving back and forth, but with the same pressure that I had had there before. And it wasn't pressure that we hear about men talking about, you know, with the elephant on the chest or something like that. And I'm just mentioning this because women do have different symptoms generally for heart attacks than men do. As a retired nurse, my next thought was, I'm having a heart attack. So, and, you know, kind of knowing that, I also had later that day, as I got to the hospital and everything, vomiting, which is also something that is often a symptom that goes along with it for women. But I really at that point started thinking in terms of prayer, and I was thinking, well, what should I do? Should I call 911? But that meant I had to get out of bed to retrieve my cell phone from the charger. Should I wake Mason, because he was still in the bed there? And I didn't want to alarm him because I knew that this could be a very different ending with this situation than what I actually had, because I thought, well, I could send him down to get one of his parents. And a little bit of explanation on that is that my son and daughter-in-law live in a split-level house, and their bedroom is on a different floor than the floor that Mason and I were sleeping on. So, secondly, with that, Mason had just been diagnosed 2 years before that with a dual diagnosis of attention deficit disorder and autism spectrum disorder. I only see him like every other month, and I didn't know how he might respond to a situation like that if I was waking him up. But I thought, well, maybe I'd better do that. But I didn't even know if he would go downstairs and get one of his parents, or if he would just run across the hall and get back in his own bed and go back to sleep. So I started praying at that point with more. But I decided to go ahead and wake him up and asked him to go wake up Mommy or Daddy and ask them to come to my room because I wasn't feeling well. And his first groggy response to me was, what? And I said, well, my prayer included to help him to carry out his task, so I repeated it. And he also, and also to please protect him from any trauma that might be associated with the experience, not knowing what was ahead, for either of us with this. But he went very quickly, and I could see him turning lights on his way, or hear the click of the light switches and stuff, so I knew he was going. And it was then I remembered, telling God and Jesus that I knew that I could die, and asked him to stay with me, whatever the outcome would be, till I got to the other side of either this event or the other side with him. And a calm came over me at that point. My son and daughter-in-law both came to the room, and Mason had already crawled into their bed and went back to sleep, with not even getting up when the ambulance arrived. I was able to talk to the 911 dispatcher on the phone and describe my symptoms, give all of my medications and doses to the ambulance attendants. Of course, it wasn't nearly as many meds as I'm on now, but I was able to do that at least. But as a visitor to the area without a physician base in Rochester, and my kids only having been living there for about a year, the only hospital they knew of was the one affiliated with Rochester University. But the EMT who was with the ambulance made the decision to take me to Rochester General, because that's the home of the Rochester Heart Institute. So my prayers then started further in supplication, asking, dear Lord, please help those who need your help, thinking about the first responders who were coming to help me, including the driver of the ambulance, the receiving ER personnel, and beyond that, and then my family, and of course Mason, and myself, in that order. The Heart Institute was 16 miles from my son's house, and he followed the ambulance and said that they went 80 miles an hour all the way. There were no sirens, but there were lights flashing, and this was all because of, at 5:30ish in the morning on a Saturday morning, there wasn't much traffic, so they didn't need sirens or anything with it. They communicated with the cardiac emergency department all the way with my vital signs and my EKG, and the ED doctors were sending orders for IVs and meds and stuff, and we arrived at the emergency room before I had a third dose of nitroglycerin, which was something that they give you every 5 minutes in 3 doses to try to dilate the blood vessels while you're en route before you get there, because they want to keep the heart pumping with things. So we arrived there about 5:50 in the morning, and again I prayed, please help those who need your help, as they started an arteriogram and located the blockage, and they put 2 stents in. And I was awake for the procedure because they asked questions regarding pain level at different points of the procedure. And before they actually started the procedure and were prepping me for it and stuff, I didn't hear answers in my head or anything from Jesus, from God, but I felt them. I felt the warmth that was not specifically related to medication that had been given to me or from blankets or anything like that, and felt that there was a mantle that was wrapped around me and that someone was holding me during that time. And I believe it was the Lord. He was staying with me, keeping me safe, and being reflected in the persons and actions of the nurses and the doctors who were with me. So going back to the question, do you feel you cheated death? My answer remains no, it wasn't my time. I'm still here due to divine intervention that took care of the whole sequence of the events for me. His appointment of a 10-year-old guardian angel who got things started for me in terms of getting help, And that was all before well, I guess, and all the events, the sequence of all the events before, the medical attention got, in progress. So it's left me here, from with the knowledge that Jesus or God and God still have plans for me, and my job now is to determine what they are and to follow through with them. So, thank you.